Welcome everyone. Appreciate you being here. We're going to get started with our alumni panel. We've done this for several years, a few years now, and these have been really great experiences for our students, and really appreciate our alumni being willing to come back and share with you some of their ideas and experiences. We're going to start with an opening prayer though, and Skylar Russell has offered to give that. Thank you. We've got a little bit of housekeeping before we hear from our panelists. First of all, there is a application workshop for our grad program. So if you are at the point where you're considering applying for grad school, be sure to make note of this. And also, because we love you, you have a chance to get some Cougar Cash for being here today. We'll show this again at the end. Fill out a little form and we'll pick some winners, and it might be you. But I just kind of want to start with this slide. How many of you have heard this before? Raise your hand if you've heard. You can do anything with an English major. Okay, raise your hand if this makes you feel super hopeful and optimistic and excited. Okay, there are a few. Good. Raise your hand if this makes you feel frustrated and confused. All right, fair enough. This is what we've found. Based on some research that we did within the department, as well as some research I'm going to touch on in just a second, this is really common. And it's true that you can go anywhere with an English major, and our majors have gone to just about every field imaginable. But equally as important is to know how you get from here to there. And that's why we have these events, and that's what our panelists are going to help us see today. In addition to that, though, we wanted to share with you some research that MLA recently published. And these were just a couple of the data points that they shared about where our English majors go, and we have a handout so you can read that more closely, and where some of the competencies that you're gaining might be applied and might be useful. So hopefully this helps you think more broadly about the skills that you're gaining. Sometimes we think you can go anywhere, but then the three jobs you're told about are teaching, writing, and being a lawyer or something like that. So it's much more broad. Those are great. And we endorse those careers wholeheartedly. And there are a lot more options out there too. So we are going to move forward, and this is the order that we will have our presenters go. So we're going to invite Brittany to come up first. There will be a little time in between as we switch microphones and stuff, so be patient with that. And then there will be time at the end for some questions and answers. So be thinking of those questions. You can have questions for individual presenters or for the panel as a whole. So, all right, let's start that.
Okay, wonderful, thank you. So nice to be back on campus, actually. Thank you, and great to be with you here today. So just to quickly share my path, which upon leaving BYU was probably pretty clear. I was an education major, so English education, Spanish education minor, and I started just locally. BYU has the great connection where I did the internship, which is very trial by fire. You're a teacher your first year, and it was so wonderful at Mapleton, not very far away, and then followed that up with a second year there, was involved in some programs, and really wanted to explore more, get a master's degree. So I went to get a master's. I'll leave off the college that I attended for that. Unfortunately, it was not BYU. And then after that, so maybe to backtrack just slightly, I will confess, I had undiagnosed anxiety. So even deciding to be an English major, education major, before I knew how to handle that, took me a bit of a journey or process. It was wonderful, but it was a journey or process, and it wasn't until I was starting my teaching internship at Mapleton that I had this kind of confirmation one day when I woke up, like, this is good, which was such a blessing to me after 2 to 3 years of debate and wonder and worry. Like, this is good, and it will be a step in your journey. I had no idea what that meant, how long I would be teaching, what that meant, but I knew it would be a step in my journey, and I was grateful for that. So here's where the undiagnosed anxiety shows up again. So I'm graduating with my master's, and I at the time I think there was a teaching shortage, so I had 4 job offers, and I turned them all down. Really terrible life decision, right? But thankfully, somehow Cottonwood High School called me and asked me to interview. And I went in, loved the job, but it launched me into it, gave me the opportunity. I don't know if any of you have heard of Latinos in Action. And so that's a program that existed. We were able to bring it to Cottonwood High School. At Cottonwood, it had a few different elements, so I got to interact with the community, with Big Brothers, Big Sisters, partner with them quite a bit, and so did a lot more presenting, writing grants than I ever thought I would, and so was using skills beyond teaching. But then I was 29 and not married, and for some reason that was like a, what am I doing with my life moment? And I decided to move back to Ohio where all of my family was and where my nieces and nephew were, and I was like, why am I building my career away from my nieces and nephew? That's what I thought at the time. And I wanted to leave teaching for a minute, so I got just very much a Band-Aid job that I knew that, and took a salary hit just temporarily while I was looking for what I really wanted to do there. And it led me to lots of informational interviews, and I remember being shocked. It felt like almost every time I met with someone in these careers I was exploring, they all had English degrees. And I was like, oh, you can do that, you can do that. Like, just so inspiring. There were 3 jobs I really wanted and I didn't get. And at the time I felt heartbroken, but it worked out beautifully. Latinos in Action actually called, and that was my true dream job. It just wasn't available the year before when I was leaving teaching, so I came back to Utah, but I felt really grateful to the Lord. Before I left Ohio, I got a chance to see each of the 3 people who were given the jobs that I had desperately wanted in that moment, and it was just this very, just a blessing for me, this very clear confirmation of where I was going. So then I went to Latinos in Action, and that was my dream job. Had no idea what that would be like with presenting to district leaders all across the United States, starting up new programs, writing anything from curriculum to design guides for engineers for what we were building, to grants, to working with development and funders. And so didn't realize how much our English degree would come into that as I was transitioning. And then I got the opportunity, so Lucid for Education is a division of Lucid. Lucid Software, if you're familiar with Lucid Software, we don't quite fit in Silicon Slopes. We're at 106 South, but Lucid Software is visual collaboration software. We have Lucid Spark, Lucid Chart. Lucid for Education is the division that offers our Lucid products to education. And I got to go there in operations. I lead a couple of teams. They started the position for me there, but I had no idea. I was just reflecting quickly on all the things that I do with our degree and how grateful I am for the training. Let's see, I just jotted this down quickly. How much I use this every day. It was like from writing bug reports and work tickets for engineers to help articles for users, marketing flyers and web pages. We have to report to our executive leadership team. I craft those, project management reports, faculty training, and then of course like the basic email communication, legal reviews of documents and contracts. Anyways, a lot more, and I still need these skills. And I remember, I didn't know Dr. Matthews was going to be here today, but a very distinct memory in my experience in the BYU English program was I was not doing well on one of my papers in her class, and I went to her office, and I'm still shocked and very grateful she spent this much time with me, which was unreal for me for a professor to do. And she told me, I don't know if I'm quoting this correctly, but what's always stuck in my mind is good writing is actually good thinking. And for some reason that was revolutionary. It changed my trajectory, and she sat there with me and taught me how to think. And that is what I have to do on a daily basis. I feel like as English education majors, our ability to dissect complex information, to draw conclusions, interpret, to present those in a persuasive way or compile those succinctly. Anyways, we use that extensively, but it's challenging to find people who can do that well. And in recent hires that we've made at Lucid, the people who have won the positions, which just, for example, we'll get like over 100 applicants per position. But the people who have been won out are the people who have some sort of background with that, because we're like, ooh, we need that skill too, in addition to what we're hiring you for. So, thanks for letting me join.
Yeah, I studied English and editing here, and it was awesome. Thank you. So when I was in high school and decided what I wanted to do, I was like, oh, there's so many options. And I know I loved reading and writing and researching, and so I was like, I'll be an English major because I thought about being a lawyer. Then I was like, I don't actually want to argue in court. I did the research, but not arguing. Then I was like, I'll be a teacher. And my older brother said, you're too short to be a teacher. I look like all the high school students. Don't let it deter you. But I was like, okay. And then I was like, oh, it'd be really cool to work with the United Nations, but I didn't really know how to do that. And all of these ideas, and so I just came back to what I love doing. And like I said, reading, writing, researching. And so I became an English major. And then I added on the editing minor because I just really enjoyed like pure editing classes. So I think my biggest takeaway from my experience and my success post-graduation is do everything you can as a student, even if it doesn't fit within like the liberal arts aspect of what you are studying. So not only did I join the College of Humanities Student Council and the English Society, I did 2 internships, one at Cedar Fort, because I was trying to see if I wanted to be a full-time editor. I discovered I didn't like editing 40 hours a week. And then I did, through the Business Career Center at the Mary School, they have on-campus internships. I highly recommend if you don't know what you want to do post-graduation, go just sign up for an internship. They put you in groups. And I learned from this experience, so I was with all business majors, and I learned that being able to read and write and analyze a lot of information and come to conclusions was really important. And I felt, even though like I wasn't in the business school, I actually held my own because, anyway, a lot of the work ended up falling to me because I could do those skills that they hadn't yet mastered yet. And that's just from like research papers and writing and all the things you do as an English major. So I did those 2 things, and then I also worked a variety of jobs on campus, specific to maybe what I wanted to do in the future. I started as an office assistant in university communications, which is like the media managers for BYU. And then after I got back from my mission and I got further into the editing minor, I started being an editor for them, and then that kind of led to being able to write the news recaps for the devotionals. And so I had a lot of experience. And then I transitioned to the College of Humanities. I was their first writer they hired in their kind of comms team, and it was awesome because I got to experience a lot of different things. And I discovered that my boss had my dream job because a lot of people do a lot of cool things. I'm sure you all have cool life stories, but no one knows about them unless someone can tell their story or like showcase how awesome they are. And so from this experience being a writer and writing about the awesome things happening in this college, I realized that I'm a storyteller. Not like a Brandon Sanderson, I'm not good at creative writing, but I enjoy learning things and being able to show the impact and kind of showing the story behind people's lives or people's experiences or events we have on campus. So after I graduated, I took a job at a local nonprofit. Didn't pay super well, but I was able to do all of the communications and grant writing, so it was a really broad experience, super great. This is my whole life journey. I also worked as a tech writer or a ghostwriter for a tech company to get some additional writing experience, and then to save money on rent, my husband and I managed apartments. Was the worst job, but saved us a lot of money. Then I had my first kid, and I decided to quit the nonprofit so I could be at home for a bit. My husband was still in school, and so we balanced that. And in addition to managed apartments and ghostwriting, I started doing marketing and transaction work for a real estate company. That led to a research assistant position with a facility management manager. I helped kind of with he was an expert witness on a litigation case. I also worked on his giant book, editing and writing, broad scope of skills. And then after that, my husband decided that he didn't know what he was going to do with his life, so I was like, well, I have a lot of skills and I like working, so I went and got a full-time job. I kind of, just because of the situation we were in, took one of the first jobs I could get, but it paid really well and had really good benefits. So I went to Rocky Mountain University. I was the executive assistant to the provost. And even though it wasn't my dream job, I told myself when I started that I was going to say yes to every project offered to me, and that I would do everything outside of my scope of responsibilities that I wanted. So any university committee that would take me as an assistant, I would sign up to join. And so I ended up doing a lot of really cool projects. I met a lot of people across the university. That led to showcasing all of the skills I had gained from my job experiences, from my English major. And so when a position opened up for alumni relations manager, which was kind of customer service, communications, and event planning, I applied and got that position. And then that led to a communications manager role, which I basically just tacked on a bunch more stuff for university communications. In addition to the alumni relations job, I got to travel a lot. I hosted alumni events. It was really cool. And then that allowed me to just keep moving up. At one point, because I worked at a university and because my background was English and editing and not necessarily comms, I decided to get a master's degree in communications through BYU Online. It was a good program, really cheap, and I could do it online while working full-time. At that time, I had my second kid, and then after I got my master's degree, I was promoted to assistant director, got more responsibilities, and then I had my third kid, and then I took the job at BYU Marriott. So there I am the public relations communications manager. I work with a team, but essentially I just get to tell awesome stories about the stuff happening at the college, and it's great. And so the moral of my story is, well, two. One, your journey will not look like this, because everybody has their own journey, and so figure out what you want to do. But it's not, I learned that as an English major I could do anything, but at the same time you can't really do anything just because you're an English major. And so I decided to do everything I could to get different experiences and skills related to maybe what I possibly wanted to do, and then that led to a lot of opportunities in the future. And that's me and my family.
All right, so my name is Kiri Case. I just wanted to talk a little bit about how the English program landed me my dream job, basically. And I'll get to what my dream job was. But my story starts as an undergraduate here at BYU. I actually transferred from BYU Idaho. While I was in BYU Idaho, I thought I was going to be a teacher. I thought that's what I really wanted to do. And then I got to BYU. They put me in a school to practice teaching, and I was like, never mind. This is really scary and horrible. So I decided I was just going to go all in because I was doing education in English. And I decided, I'm just going to go all in into English. And thanks to all of the things that the English program offers, I changed my life. First of all, internships were really important for me. I got to do an internship at the Shakespeare Birthplace Trust, which was really amazing and kind of opened my mind to all of the things that we as English majors or English admirers can do. I built my resume just way more than I had ever built it before. I had so many different kinds of experiences there. I got to write a technical user manual for a new application that they were using. I got to do a lot of research in the archives there. I got to plan events, which I had never done before and was super outside of my comfort zone. And I also, got to report back to my mentors and my advisors and really think about the way that I was thinking and the way that I was learning. And so it really built me academically as well. I also got to internship for the More Good Foundation, which is local. And there I got to help produce a podcast, which was the first time I had ever done anything like that. I didn't like hearing my voice back, it was terrible, but it was really cool to be able to write for an audience that was directly consuming what I wrote. And it helped me learn a lot about future writing, even if it was just academic writing. Both of those opportunities were thanks to good mentors that I had along the way. I see a lot of them in this room, which is really inspiring. But it was Dennis Cutchins who came to me and said, hey, I think you would like this opportunity. You should apply for the Shakespeare Birthplace Trust. And I had never even heard of it. And I had never traveled outside the country, and I was super afraid. But it was a life-changing experience, like I said. I would have never gotten the jobs I got after that if it weren't for that resume and that portfolio. I just had some amazing professors who encouraged me to get a Master's of Fine Arts in Creative Writing. And I had never thought about that before. I thought it was kind of a waste of time because I was like, well, why go to school to learn how to write if I can already write? Turns out I couldn't write very well. So it was very important that I do that. But then also people like our internship coordinator, Trina Hardy, she helped me find that More Good Foundation, and that's where I got to experience the first podcast and really that live audience or that immediate audience that drove me to start finding more experiences like that. And that's when I decided to join Divine Comedy on campus. Divine Comedy is a sketch comedy troupe. They're a club now. And that was just one of the opportunities that the English department provided for me because I was able to get credit for it, write about my experiences. It opened my mind up creatively. So this was an opportunity that really helped propel me academically as well as professionally. But there were also so many cool workshops that I got to do. And the English department is ready and available to help you find those workshops and find those like conferences that you can go to, help you get scholarships. I got to go to WIFR, which is Writing and Illustrating for Young Readers, and I wrote a novel there. I got to go to a couple internships, or not internships, sorry, a couple workshops that are taught on campus by authors. I'm thinking Andy Ellis, she's here, she's awesome. And I just wrote so much content in these workshops, and it really helped me realize that what I wanted to do was something creative. And all during this, I was building up a portfolio that I could then show to somebody. And so now I can look in the mirror, and I just can't believe how much I've changed. That's me at my dream job. I work at Studio C, and it's the most amazing thing that like I could ever imagine for myself. But I would not be there if it weren't for all the experience that I built up over my 8 years in the English department. And so just all of those little experiences, all the mentors telling me that I could do it, the mentors in this department, there's something that sets them apart. I think it's because, like we were saying earlier, with good writers are good thinkers. I think good thinkers are good people, and they really want to help you. They really want to help you accomplish something that you never thought you could. And creative writing and writing in general helps open your mind up to possibilities. Everyone needs an English major in their company or their department. Everyone needs someone who understands the language and understands how to reach an audience. And that's how English helped me reach my dream.
If we added a clause and we said English majors can do anything, go anywhere, if ... Well, how would you follow the if there? There are probably lots of ways you could answer that, but it would be kind of what floats to the top right off the bat for you. Go through each of these.
Passage. Okay. I was actually thinking while Stephanie was talking, like, oh yes, this was so true with the experience, that it was just taking on things that came in front of me. I had no idea when starting the major here at BYU what that path would look like, and I'm so grateful for the path. The planner and organizer in me wanted to know that path, but just being able to take on any opportunity, explore. It might just be that I love having my hands in multiple things at once, but being able to do that really builds the resume so much, so that when you go to another position, you have some surprise things in your back pocket, I think.
Yeah, I think, so when I was a student, they kind of launched the Humanities plus Humanities. I don't know if is that still a thing here? Yeah, so, and so I knew, because I had met some English major graduates, that if I just did my classes and didn't get any experience when I left, I would not be able to get a job, because I wouldn't know how to explain what my value was. And so that's why I think my big takeaway is, you, in your classes and in your major, you'll learn amazing skills, but they might not be practical, tactical ones that you can explain to an employer why they should hire you. And so getting experiences where you're applying those skills, but in different environments or in different situations, will allow you then to, after graduating, be like, oh, I can read and write really well, and I can analyze information and make conclusions, and I've done it in these scenarios outside of just my classes.
Yeah, just piggybacking off of what Brittany said, I think saying yes to opportunities. There's the rule of improv comedy, right? Yes, and just making that and your unique spin off of it. So taking what you're really good at, and then saying yes to the opportunities that come to you, because there's plenty of opportunities that will come to an English major.
Just, do you mind adding a quick postscript there? Because we're giving these presentations in our English 203 classes, and one of our slides is this ridiculous array of possibilities, of things you can do. And it sounds like you guys had brought a mentality of just kind of openness to possibility. But as you think back, can you each think of just one example where you made a judicious decision, an informed decision, and why? Because it wasn't just totally random, right? So what were experiences or things that facilitated the decision-making that led you to get an experience that had value?
I don't know if I should start.
So like I said, I worked for University Communications as an assistant. I literally just answered phones and responded to emails. And I saw these media managers around me, and they were just the coolest people because their job was to see everything that was happening on campus and then share it with the media. And I was like, what a cool opportunity. And so it's kind of, it diverted me to a communications journey, but I was so far along in the English editing, I couldn't change majors. So that's why, well, I probably wouldn't have either. English is great, we should all stay in English, but I realized that like that's kind of the avenue of where I want to take my writing, editing, like communicating skills. And so that's why I got the internship, and that's why I got the second job as a writer for the College of Humanities, because that gave me those opportunities as a student to experience those things.
Kind of a similar experience. I had the opportunity to have a job at BYU Broadcasting as an undergrad, just writing advertisements for the channel itself. So just writing advertisements for BYU TV's other shows. And I took the job because I was like, oh wow, like I've been learning about how to write for an audience, how to write to persuade, and this will be like a really good opportunity to practice that. And it was amazing, and I learned a lot of amazing things from that job.
I do love the concept of mentors too that was mentioned earlier. I think when I was consciously beginning to think about leaving the classroom itself, there was a lot of like talking with mentors, exploring different paths, doing informational interviews with them, and ultimately that led to Latinos in Action. But then with Latinos in Action, when I was looking to make my next change, there were different moments, different things that got me interested in technology. And I knew very much like, okay, I know what we're doing here, I want to be able to take that a little broader than what we're doing. And so I became more interested in technology, started meeting with some other SaaS companies and mentors at different SaaS companies. Jody Saylor at Instructure is phenomenal, and learning more from them, and then that led me to Lucid.
That's a really helpful start. Why don't we now open it up to any questions in the room for specific alums or for the panel as a whole? Yeah.
Hi, yes, I think your email answered twice that you stated an importance in knowing how to market yourself and knowing how to vocalize your skills to an employer, especially when you have a myriad of jobs, of experiences. Where did you learn those skills? Was it here at BYU? Like, where did you learn the vocabulary to market yourself well to get the jobs that you wanted?
Tyler, can you hear back there?
Okay, I know we should pass this over to you. I'll just say quickly, because I'm not as skilled as these ladies probably, but I didn't know how to take what I was doing with English and teaching and translate it because I didn't know the business world well enough. So I went to some really good friends. One of my good friends was a leader at Qualtrics, and she just helped me translate and write my resume. Yeah, I know there are other programs you can go to.
I don't think I have a good answer to your question, because maybe I was just overly confident. Like I said, I did as much as I could as a student to either have a job related to future opportunities, or the internships, or even just joining like the College of Humanities Student Council. That opened up some cool experiences. And so when I went into my first job interview, I felt like even though all of my experiences were student experiences, like even one for the editing minor, the capstone is like creating a magazine. I mean, that's huge to be able to go to a job and say, I have worked on a magazine, I've written stories, I've edited, I helped compile, we got advertisements, like all of those experiences. I didn't feel like I couldn't market myself. Like I felt like I had what I needed to get a job. So, yes.
I think when I started to realize how to do it was in it was like an editing class. It was taught by Carol Lynch Williams, and she told us like how we could put this experience into our resume, because we were reading critically each other's work, and so there was a lot of analysis, and there was also just editing, which is a great job to have. So yeah, there were teachers who like directly taught me, and I think I also went to like there's like a resume day on campus or something, and they helped me edit my resume and like do a mock interview.
things like that. So there's a lot of resources just around campus that can help you.
Other questions?
Yeah, thank you guys for coming here. This is great. I'm just curious, so in many discussions like this, I feel like all of the speakers justify their English degree because they ended up in a certain position, like, oh, well, like it worked out because I ended up here. But just looking at the stats in the back of the handout that we got, the second largest field for English majors is managerial positions in business or science. So if you instead end up in a writing or editing position and you end up there, would you regret your English degree?
I'll just start because I have this. I mean, I wouldn't at all. I have done certain jobs that are more managerial than the job I currently have. But I don't know. I think it's all valid. I really enjoyed my managerial experience, or even just like working in random fields, like writing that technical user manual that I wrote in England was an amazing experience. I would love to do more of that. But it's just nice to have all those opportunities open, if that makes sense. It's just nice to know that, like, if this doesn't work out for me, what I really want to do, then I could do anything else and probably enjoy it just as much. I don't know if that answers your question.
I think I'm a little confused with the question, so I'm just going to answer what I think you're asking, but it might be way off. I think the English major basis is so broad, you can go a lot of places, yes. Wait, are you asking if I end up in writing only, I would regret it, or if I didn't end up in writing and editing, I would regret it?
If you didn't.
I didn't, okay, got it. No, because I think that I've gotten to where I am, well, like, I'm a senior manager, so technically I'm the manager. I do manage people. I don't do a lot of writing because I have awesome students do that. But like if you can write and edit, you're gonna do really well no matter where you go. Because so I worked at a health university before here, and they all have PhDs. They've all worked in their fields, like treating patients, and they're terrible writers. And so the ability to write and edit in any field you go into, working alongside people who don't have those strong skills, like you're gonna be able to find opportunities and experiences with the house. Might be the opposite, I'm not sure.
I also might not be answering correctly. So I ended up, like you said, statistically in management in business, and don't currently necessarily, my job description is not necessarily to do editing and writing every day in lots of different formats. If I didn't have that, I'm not sure if I would regret it or not. It's a part of my job I enjoy. In leaving teaching, I was looking at what do I find most fulfilling, where do I thrive the most, and I found that I really love creating projects, analyzing, standing them up. Anyway, so I lean more toward that. But just speaking from a friend who did the English teaching major here at BYU, and then was one of the lead editors and managers at Elsevier, if you're familiar with that, but now owns her own flower farm up in North Ogden. But she had just as much success in the actual editing field as well, so I'm probably not sure. I'm so sorry, I'm not answering this correctly, but in talking with her, we've both loved our journeys and careers and don't regret the path, and probably just align more with what we found is where we thrive, but I only found that as I walked the journey.
I had a note, but yeah. Just as a note, I think also too, a lot of the writing and editing jobs, unless you're in a very specific field like publishing or maybe academia, those are usually the entry level, and so you might start out after graduating being a full-time tech writer or an editor, but as you progress up the line, you're gonna do less writing and editing. And so, my first couple jobs was fully writing and editing, but as I've grown and gained experiences, that's where I moved into those manager roles, so.
Yeah, let me just quickly comment on that. So I appreciate the way you put that question. At least my take on that, the size of that category, is that our graduates end up in this huge array of fields. And then because of their kind of meta skills associated with what we've been talking about, good readers and good writers are good thinkers, and they are reflective, and they know how to make sense of information and synthesize what they encounter. And that ends up making them good leaders. So you end up in management because you can do it, and others aren't as good at it, right? They're good at the narrow skills, but not good at this kind of broader way of thinking. And then the way you phrase it is you ended up, right, in this place. So part of the whole logic of English Plus is that we actually don't end up anywhere, right? We find our way. So it's about being more intentional and more active in, as an architect of your professional journey. And I think that's also what you guys are illustrating really effectively. Good question. Others along these lines or something different, anything else struck you? Yeah.
Based on y'all's experience, do you think that it's necessary to get a master's degree following your undergrad to succeed in those varying fields?
Everybody that's asking about the necessity of a master's degree to get where you guys are. Yeah. Thoughts?
I don't have master's degrees.
My master's degree has nothing to do necessarily with what I do today, but I would not have been promoted to the level, like Lucid has levels, right? The level and position and salary if I did not have a master's degree. They do have certain thresholds where you have to have a master's degree to be promoted to.
Mine's kind of a confession. So, well, when I worked in higher education and to get certain positions, they preferred master's degrees. But the coolest people I know work in academia. They're like actually in this room. And so I always secretly as a side thought maybe I'd eventually want to end up teaching like in a college. And this is a really random thing, but so I was looking at BYU Hawaii's jobs one day and they were hiring an assistant professor of communications, but you didn't have to have a PhD, whereas in English you do have to have a PhD to teach, unless you're really awesome, I guess. But and so because I always wanted to leave that door open, I decided to get a master's degree. But it was really cool because after I got my master's degree, I ended up teaching an online class for Ensign College. And so I did that up until December because I decided that having a full-time job and a side job and being pregnant with my fourth was just a miserable break. So for me, my aspirations and what I wanted to possibly do down the road, I knew that if I wanted to have the opportunity to teach in the future, I would need a master's, and so that's why I did it. So no, it wasn't necessary, but I wanted to.
Yeah, I think same for me. I think there's plenty of jobs and career paths that you can take without a master's degree, especially without a master's degree in creative writing. But for me, I chose it because it was really important to what I wanted to do, and I felt like I wasn't ready yet as a writer to like go out into the world because I wanted to write novels, I wanted to write for TV, and I was like, I just don't feel like I'm ready yet. And knowing that the master's program here involves like mentors so much and mentorship, that's really what drove me to get it, and honestly, I don't think I would be where I am today without that mentorship.
Other questions? Yeah.
This might sound simple compared to the other questions, but how to write fast? I have a fellow student of mine who can write 5 pages in an hour on a slow day, and I cannot do that. So I was wondering how to write fast.
I'm not the person to answer this.
So my writing is more communications based, but I would say deadlines make you write fast. I could have an assignment for like a week and the day it's due, I can get it done in an hour if I need to. You probably all know how to do that with your papers. So, but I think maybe as a more better answer to your question, if you care about what you're writing about, it's easier. And so I feel lucky that what I write about is generally something of interest, and so it's not hard to write. But I'm not Brandon Sanderson. That's just, he's just his own field.
I don't have thoughts DeWant should share. I don't have thoughts.
Don't compare yourself to others. Maybe it's different. It's okay to write slow unless your full-time job as a writer and you have very specific deadlines.
Speed is relative.
Yeah.
So you each listed like a lot of pathways that you've taken, and my question is just, if you were to pick one of those as the most pivotal moment in your career, what would it be?
You should let me start.
This is a total cop-out. I can't do that because, and maybe this is, I don't know if this is slightly inappropriate, but just in my whole journey with the Lord on my path to getting married at 34 and having children at 36, it's been very much I feel like what I've been taught over and over for me is you all will not go down that same path. Congratulations. But just like, it's very much, I can't see in front of me, and the next step is, so he leads me on the next step, and that's so key and pivotal for that time, and then it leads to the next step, and he just keeps helping me along the way, but none of them have necessarily been more pivotal than the other, I think.
So I asked my student employees before this presentation if I should be real or if I should show how awesome I am. So I'm going to answer your question with my real side, okay? So I grew up in a family where both my parents worked because we were really poor, and so I had always planned to work. And then I came to BYU, and all of my roommates were like, we get a degree and become stay-at-home moms. And I was like, oh, that's like what you're supposed to do, maybe? Anyway, so I went on mission, I got back, and then some other things happened, and I was like, I'm gonna find a job or a career path that will allow me to be a stay-at-home mom, but also work on the side because I like working. And then my husband struggled to graduate, and he graduated finally, but didn't have a lot of experience, and he didn't get a job. And so I was real tired of being poor and not having insurance, so I went and got a job. And that's, I guess, the moment. I mean, like, I prayed about it too, and so it wasn't just like, you know, be patient. It was like, you can go get a job. And so, but I feel really privileged. My husband is a stay-at-home dad now, and so I have a job where I can have 4 kids and I'm a stay-at-home dad, and we're financially really well off. So there's my really answer for you.
Yeah, it's really hard to answer a question like that, but I'll just say, I think a pivotal moment in my mind was saying yes to that first internship, because it was so outside of my comfort zone, and like, a lot of us in here are writers, we're introverts, we don't like to do things outside of our comfort zone. So it was just like, oh, move to a different country where I've never been before, and do a job I've never done before. Okay, and I did it, and I tried it, and I just kept saying yes after that. And that's what led me to everything else that's good in my life, so. Yeah.
Okay, our time is far spent, but our guests, we've got a few minutes after we end here. If you have a really specific question for one of them, you can maybe pop up and ask them. Otherwise, let's thank Kiri, Brittany, and Stephanie for their time.